Welcome back to Deep Talks, where we break down complex topics in minutes. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to subscribe to Deep Talks.
People think they know the story of Gaddafi, but it doesn't start with the monster, it starts with the hero. But how does that young, celebrated figure on the left become this? It just doesn't add up.
To get there, you have to understand Libya. And what most people don't realize is that Libya wasn't even a real country. Right, it was an invention. It was 3 separate regions, over 100 tribes cobbled together by colonizers. There was no Libyan identity.
And the king the UN put in charge, he was seen as a Western puppet who had zero interest in actually ruling, a total power vacuum.
And into that vacuum comes this voice on the radio, Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser, calling for a united Arab world. And you have this poor Bedouin kid, Muammar Gaddafi, born in a tent, secretly listening to this revolutionary call to action.
Gaddafi knew right away, you can't win over a nation that doesn't exist. You have to seize its only real institution, the army.
So when the coup happened, it was almost a joke. The king was in Turkey for health reasons. Gaddafi's men just walked in. No shots fired. Wait, a 27-year-old captain just takes over an entire country? That's how fragile the whole thing was.
But he didn't just want to rule. He wanted to start from scratch, invent a totally new way for society to work.
So no parliament, no government. How is a country supposed to function? This sounds like a recipe for absolute chaos.
And it gets weirder. He says wages are slavery. Renting a house is slavery. So he promises a world where the state provides everything. But it's really a fantasy. It's like a corporate suggestion box where everyone gets to submit ideas, but the CEO, Gaddafi, still makes every single call.
He called it a jamahiriya, a state of the masses. He was telling people he was giving them all the power. But what he actually did was destroy every institution, the police, the military, and replace them with loyalists who answered only to him.
And he could do it because of oil. The deal he offered Libyans was simple. Give up all your freedom, and in return, I'll pay all your bills.
And here's the uncomfortable part. For a long time, it actually worked. He delivered. Libya had the highest standard of living in Africa.
So while he's building the supposed utopia at home, he's basically declaring war on the entire world. Bombings, assassinations, state-sponsored terror.
And look at this list. It's insane. He's funding anyone and everyone. The IRA, the Black Panthers, FARC, and Colombia. In his mind, these weren't terrorists. They were freedom fighters, just like him, fighting against Western imperialism.
But then his protector, the Soviet Union, collapses. The world turns on him, sanctions hit, the oil money dries up, and the utopia starts to crack.
Then after 9/11, he watches the US invade Iraq and pulls Saddam Hussein out of a hole in the ground. And he knows he could be next. So he does a complete 180. He renounces weapons of mass destruction, condemns al-Qaeda, and suddenly becomes the West's new best friend.
And it's so bizarre. The pariah becomes the partner. The same Western leaders who would eventually orchestrate his downfall are now his ally. Which brings us to 2011. The Arab Spring hits Libya. Protests erupt in Benghazi, and Gaddafi threatens to crush them. Now, the official story for NATO's intervention was to prevent a massacre, but no one really agrees on why they went in. And here's where it gets unsettling. Years later, Obama called the decision to intervene in Libya the worst mistake of his presidency.
What we do know is that NATO's air power was what finished him. It wasn't the rebels, it was Western bombs. He was found hiding in a pipe.
And the story doesn't end with Gaddafi's death. It ends with the death of his country. Civil war, a failed state, even open-air slave markets.
Which leaves this really uncomfortable question. The man was a monster. But when you look at what Libya became after he was gone, was the cure worse than the disease? Thanks for listening to Deep Talks. We'll see you in the next one.